What Indiana is doing with its scheduling is downright egregious, and Penn State's not too far behind them.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
That is right. It is a Locked On crossover to talk more of a Big Ten perspective here from the Penn State, Indiana point of view. My name is Zach Seyko, and I'm the host of Locked On Nittany Lions, credentialed media member for both Penn State football and Penn State wrestling. He is Jacob Goins, host of Locked On Hoosiers, your daily source for all things Indiana, your Hoosiers expert. And we are talking about how Penn State and Indiana are both in the wrong, but Indiana is really taking the lead on this. Curt Cignetti is not backing down. They are canceling games. Penn State isn't doing that, but there is a strategy with the non-conference scheduling. So we're going to debate the scheduling, why Penn State and Indiana are doing what they're doing, the Big Ten and the SEC, who's right, who's wrong, and then looking at the landscape, what it's going to take for Penn State to surpass expectations or live up to them this season, and for Indiana to surpass expectations, surpass that potential hangover season. We're going to talk about all of that in a loaded crossover episode. Jacob, beginning with the fact that Cignetti is getting dunked on. I mean, Indiana is canceling games left and right, okay?
Yep.
You got to hold up your agreements. I agree with that point of view, but I also see what the Hoosiers are doing, because James Franklin has said this in the past, that because of conference expansion, because of conference realignment, playoff expansion, I should say, that having a cupcake non-conference schedule is not a bad thing when the Big Ten itself with 9 games is good enough, if you win those games, is enough of a reputable resume to get into the expanded college football playoff. So James Franklin has said this, which is why Penn State's non-conference schedule is very easy this year and mirrors what Indiana is doing.
Well, there's two conversations here. That's one of them, is what Penn State and Indiana's non-con schedule looks like in this particular season for 2025. More on that in just a moment. But yeah, the one that Indiana was getting hammered on, slammed about all over social media across college football was canceling 2 separate non-conference home and home games for the future on the future schedule. And we know how this works, Zach, right? You schedule these 5, 10, 15 years in advance. Yeah. Indiana just decided, we're okay. We're not going to play Virginia. Let's not act like we canceled a home and home with Florida or Alabama or LSU. It's Virginia, right? I mean, in the past, Indiana hasn't been able to say anything about any other team because football hasn't been a priority. But now that it is, you hit it perfectly. The Big Ten is deciding we're going to play 9 games and trying to hold the SEC to it as well. And we feel proud enough in what that holds to where there's no reason to play tough games outside the conference, because what more are you supposed to gain, right? It's so difficult to judge what the playoff is going to look like, what conferences are going to look like, what schedules are going to look like in the next several years. And I think that's where Indiana kind of made their decision. They said, look, until we figure this out, we're not going to worry about having to play these other teams until we know a little bit more of a clear landscape here. And so, sure, for the future, I know it looks bad. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. I hate playing 3 cupcake non-conference games in a year. I think it's a waste of time. I really, really do. But I understand why Indiana did it, and hopefully we do get some clarification moving forward.
And that's just it. When the Big Ten, I mean, this is why James Franklin says what he says, because whether or not you agree with him, there isn't that consistency across all of college football. And this isn't about Notre Dame, and it's about the fact that the SEC, which is trying to get the same rights, get the same treatment when they don't even play 8 conference games. I don't care if you think that you're better. You're playing 8 conference games. So when there isn't this one size fits all type of scheduling, where you have, okay, maybe they do go to, like, that's what James Franklin and other coaches talk about, Curt Cignetti as well, that everybody needs a universal guideline. So be in a conference, have 9 conference games, conference titles. Everybody's kind of doing their own different thing to an extent. You have uniformity within the conferences, but then you get to this playoff and all of a sudden, so the Big Ten, it has to play 9 conference games and then another Power 4 opponent on top of that, maybe 2, who knows? And then the SEC gets to play 8 conference games. They can schedule an FCS opponent late in the season. How is that right? How is that fair? So again, it was different. James Franklin talked about how important scheduling was when you had 4 teams in a playoff. You needed that extra Power 4 game in case you did have a blemish. But now with 9 conferences, or 9 conference games, the conference expansion to include Oregon, USC, UCLA, that's your out of conference game. That's it. It's just true. In the Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean, you play so many teams and there's so many opportunities to win or lose games. I mean, that's the problem. It encourages Big Ten teams to do what Indiana did. Now, some are taking advantage of it. Others are not. I know Penn State's got some bigger games coming up down the road in several years. But then the SEC plays 8 conference games, but then, they'll beat their chest because they picked up an ACC team to start the season. It's like, okay, welcome to our level. Welcome to our world. And you're spot on, Zach, about the idea that where all these different conferences just do whatever they want, and then they complain about it at the end with the college football playoff. Every conference, I'm not talking about one in particular, because they're all playing by different rules. And so this has to get fixed. It has to be solved, and I'm sure that it will with the inevitable expansion, yet again, of the college football playoff. But the problem is your overall record and resume doesn't have to be as strong anymore as it once was during the BCS era, the 4-team college football playoff, and now the 12-team. The more teams you add, the less good your resume has to be. I don't know a better way to say that, but you don't have to be as impressive on paper anymore. And so why not get rid of these games? It's bad for the fans. It's bad for the sport. It's bad for college football. But in terms of making it to the playoff at the end of the year, which is everybody's goal, doing what Indiana did isn't all that crazy when you sit down and think about it. Again, I don't support it, but I understand why they did it.
Oh, yeah, I don't support it when it comes to the college football fan, the spectator. It's bad for the sport.
Yeah.
I mean, Penn State's playing Villanova, playing Delaware.
Yeah.
It is okay for a couple of games, but even still, okay, the people that complain about these games getting scheduled, then you need that uniformity. You need a true league. The NCAA continues to fail to as an organization to keep everyone aligned. You need alignment, and that's why you have one conference doing one thing, a set of schools doing one thing, and then everybody kind of expects the same treatment when you get to the end of the road, where everybody's fighting for the same prize. It's not just, okay, it's not about handling your schedule anymore. There's 12 spots on the line, eventually 14, 16, right? 24, right? We're going to
whatever, eventually. Yeah.
So I am all for a Big Ten SEC type of challenge crossover schedule.
Yes.
Where you have to, but again, you don't need it anymore because of a 9-game conference schedule that now includes Oregon, USC, UCLA, and Washington, when it didn't in the past, and you have a 12-team playoff when it used to be just 4. You needed that 10th or 11th game to really boost your resume. Now you don't, because it's basically done for you.
That's fair. Yeah, but I support the idea of playing 9 conference games and adding one of those crossovers with another conference. Get rid of one of the smaller non-conference, G5 FCS games that are on these schedules. I mean, look, Indiana, and we're going to talk about this next, but Indiana plays Kennesaw State, Old Dominion, and Indiana State. Do we really need to play all 3 of those teams? I know why they're there. I know why they exist. I'm talking on a bigger scale. Do we really need to play all 3 of those teams? Take one of those out, put that as an SEC, Big 12, ACC game, and now we're talking about a legitimate college football schedule.
And if you don't like it, as the NCAA or as the Big Ten, change the rules. If there are higher ups executives that really have a problem with what Penn State and Indiana are doing with their 3 first games, any other schools, Indiana's getting called out because I think Curt Cignetti's not afraid to hit the podium, which
is fair. Yeah.
But Again, silently, James Franklin and Penn State are doing the same thing, at least in the present. They added Syracuse a home and home to kind of go along with that regional rivalry, if you will, or that regional game matchup that has been historic, but it's not consistent. And again, it's here one day and it's gone tomorrow. Maybe it's back in the future. So if you want consistency when it comes to scheduling, set the rules. You have the power to do that. So with that being said, the Big Ten is the toughest conference right now, and it's definitely heaviest at the top, with Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon being national title contenders in some sort of regard. Indiana is not too far outside, or maybe, again, you're going to say they're inside the playoff mix. So what does the Big Ten landscape look like from both Penn State and Indiana's perspective? And eventually, they do play each other, which that game could have pivotal consequences. We're going to talk about that and more coming up next here on this crossover episode.
Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt a little bit easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or you're planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, your investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building a little bit of wealth. And it's funny that we talk about Monarch putting you in the driver's seat, because for me, I'm saving up to buy a new car. The two vehicles I've ever had in my life are both older than me. I drive a 1997 Dodge pickup truck. And you know what? It's been great. It was free. It was given to me. But it's time to make an upgrade. And Monarch Money is helping me do that. I can track the things that I'm spending money on that I don't necessarily need. I can move money over and start saving up for that brand new car. That's why I use Monarch Money. And I'm telling you, you need to try it out. All right. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year.
So this is more about the Big Ten landscape itself, and then we'll go narrow again, talking specifically about Penn State and Indiana. But the Big Ten Conference is tough. A 9-game schedule is not going to be easy. Now, Penn State's, I think, is a little more favorable than most. Again, I'm not here to say that it's easy. I'm also not going to say that it's extremely difficult.
Sure.
But when you have Oregon and Ohio State, and then I'm not going to overlook Indiana or a Nebraska team that's better. So this is really about figuring out which teams in the Big Ten are maybe being slept on. Jacob, you might think it's Indiana, the team that you cover. I think Penn State is getting the due respect that they deserve. It seems like there is more national buy-in, that this is a team that is truly in the mix for a national title. So I'm not going to sit here and say that, oh, Penn State's being slept on. They're going to they're going to shut up the doubters. No, there is legitimate expectation locally, but also nationally as well. So it's good to see those expectations and that respect put on the Nittany Lions. Indiana's case a little bit different, though, where people think that, oh, they're due for a hangover season. They are due to take a step backwards. When I look at that schedule and when I look at the changes that they're not going to sneak up on anybody, I think that I can easily see Indiana starting off slow, but can you minimize that rough beginning with a strong finish to get back into that 12-team playoff?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about this schedule, and again, this is kind of the other part of that scheduling debate of the fact that Indiana and Penn State, for what it's worth, play 3 teams that they're just going to obliterate in the first 3 games of the season. And to vocalize it again, I don't like it. I hate this idea that we play Old Dominion, then you play Kennesaw State, then Indiana plays Indiana State on a Friday night before you open up Big Ten play. I don't like that idea at all. For some reason, Zach, Indiana's the one that caught a bunch of flack in the Locked On Big Ten squad shows. You kind of just sat back and let me take the heat on that one, and that's okay. I'll allow it this time.
Don't need to draw any attention over here. No.
But my concern with that is the fact that we play those 3 games back to back to back, then we open up Big Ten play with Illinois. And it's like, man, I trust Curt Cignetti. I trust this staff. I trust this team and this roster that I think is better overall than it was a year ago. But what do you look like in your first real big boy football game? And it's not this isn't Maryland or UCLA like it was last year. This is Illinois. This is a double-digit win team from a year ago that's bringing back more returning production than any other team in the Big Ten, talking about the Illini. That's who you open up Big Ten play with.
But that's by chance. Why Illinois is just in a good spot because they are reaping the rewards of hiring Brett Bielema. Yeah. And having a clear vision and direction of where they want to get back to. They maximize their efforts in the transfer portal. So that non-conference schedule, it's just Penn State's playing Oregon, right? Penn State plays Oregon even worse. Big Ten play.
At least, and that game's in Happy Valley, right?
That's it's at Beaver Stadium. Okay. Besides the point, and I'm not here to complain that Penn State's playing Oregon. I'm not saying that, how dare the Big Ten Conference by any means. It's somebody has to play somebody at the end of the day.
Right.
So Illinois just happens to be good this season. That's typically been a team that's been middle of the road, mediocre, really bad over the past few seasons. I get it. It's Northwestern, Maryland, and Purdue right now that are the bottom feeders of the Big Ten. You're just going into a 2025 season where, hey, Illinois might catch lightning in a bottle and you just kind of have to deal with it.
Right. But what I'm saying is, you're confident in Penn State, right? You know that they're a good team. They're national title favorites for a reason, but that has to concern you a little bit. It's like, man, I hope that we're ready. I hope that we are battle tested. I hope that we are prepared and ready to go. It's not a lack of confidence in the guys around the team. It's just the fact that your first real game of the season, it's against a really good Oregon team. Same way for Indiana against an Illinois team. I would put Penn State, Oregon, and Indiana, Illinois on the same level of toughness and difficulty at their respective tiers. Does that make sense? I mean, you're talking about two of the best at the top and two at the best at the second tier, and that's a tough game to open up with. It's the Big Ten. It doesn't matter, but I'd much rather be seeing Maryland walk in on that game than it is Illinois, and I'm sure you'd rather see Purdue than rather see Oregon in game one.
Well, let me pose a thought here, because this kind of goes back to what we were talking about in segment one and pushes maybe back. If somebody truly, again, this isn't directed at it. If somebody holds this belief, though, it is directed at them. If you don't like the non-conference schedule, okay, that's a concern. You're talking about being battle tested, being proven to that point, being ready for that caliber of opponent. Whereas, I say, okay, and Oregon's going to walk into that Penn State game and they are going to be battle tested, but that's kind of consequences with your decision. If we sit here and say, hey, Penn State and Indiana are justified for making the non-conference schedule as it is, then you're going to have to bear the consequences if they are not battle tested. Okay, so maybe that's one of the reasons that you schedule a better group of 5 opponent, group of 6, whatever it is now, or a Power 4 team from the ACC and the Big 12 that gets you ready for true conference play, and you don't get the luck of the draw of a Maryland, of a Northwestern. And again, that's a lot of things aligning to where you catch Maryland in a bad spot, because there have been times where Maryland has been good. Sure. There have been times where right now they are bad. They need a rebuild. They need a program.
They need a lot.
So, and like I said, Indiana's catching Illinois just when they're starting to get towards their peak. Then you go to Iowa, then you go to Oregon. Michigan State's going to be better. So it's kind of it's biting the bullet now or later. So if there's are they going to be ready for conference play? Then you kind of have to take matters into your own hands. If you're Indiana, if you're Penn State, if that's your gripe, and say, well, our non-conference schedule didn't prepare us for conference play, then that's on you. See, I don't believe that. I think this is a nice, good ramp up, a good build up to get ready for a 9-game grueling schedule in the Big Ten. When I say you, I don't mean directly you, but if somebody, if somebody has a problem with, hey, this is a tough game to open up the Big Ten, tough. Change the non-conference schedule if you truly have an issue with it.
Yeah, and what all that comes down to, Zach, is what do these coaches, what do they prioritize? Do they prioritize a win, a W, right? A number on the left side of your record versus the right side? Or do you want to test yourself a little bit? Because that is what the SEC tries to do, with even though they only play 8 games in conference, a lot of times they do go and play a big non-conference game. I mean, heck, one of the biggest games of opening weekend is LSU Clemson, right? And so it's like, man, LSU plays Clemson, those teams, you know exactly who you are at that game, and you're ready to go, and you don't have to worry about it, or maybe you do. You just have to figure out, what do these Big Ten coaches in our respective camps prioritize? Do you want to test your team and be ready before Big Ten play hits? Or do you want to be rested and have wins on your record and feel confident going into the opener? That's what our two teams are doing. You should be 3-0 easily. And then, you just have a tough Big Ten opener. It is what it is. But I just hope that Indiana is ready for that, because Illinois absolutely will be.
If that's a concern, then you got to change your non-conference schedule. See,
I'm with you, man.
I think Penn State is strong enough to where maybe in a different season, that's an issue. You're not battle tested, but I think Penn State is almost battle tested to a point by bringing back most of its core.
Sure.
Coming off of a college football playoff semifinal, that the 3 non-conference games are inconsequential in the scheme of things. But Indiana, different story when you're still trying to build off of what you've done. And there was a sizable amount of turnover, if you will. So let's continue with that thought. The Big Ten Conference, again, Indiana's got a gauntlet after going through the not so much of a gauntlet with the non-conference schedule.
Yeah.
And Penn State's the same way. But what about the teams that could challenge both Penn State and Indiana? Maybe it's Indiana when it comes to Penn State. We're going to talk about that coming up next here on this Locked On Crossover. So when I look at Indiana's schedule, Jacob, you know it, I know it. It is about getting through the storm that is Illinois, Iowa, and Oregon. And that's why I prefaced what I said, because I think Indiana can be a really strong team after it begins. And it's about building chemistry, building that rapport sooner rather than later. The benefit that Penn State has, same quarterback, same running backs, 80% of the starting offensive line, good amount of the defense. You have some new starters, some new rotational guys, but that's par for the course. They didn't have to build anything out through the transfer portal. And not that Indiana had to do a wholesale change through the transfer portal as well. You do have a new quarterback.
Yep.
Okay? And like I said, there isn't that element of surprise, if you will. And I think Curt Cignetti's one of the best coaches in the country as it is. I mean, he proved it in year one. You don't see that kind of change, those kind of results very often. But now the target's on your back. And when you get a better version of Illinois, an Iowa team that at Kinnick Stadium, they're always going to be good. And that's something that Penn State's going to have to deal with too. Then you go on the road to Oregon. If this Indiana team is 3-3 after that, I wonder if their season's over at that point. What would you say to that?
It would be disappointing. I would say that. There's no doubt about it. It would absolutely be disappointing.
Because then can they win 6 in a row?
Yeah. What problem is 6 in a row would include going to Happy Valley and getting a win there, right? I mean, that's a tall ask after going 3-3. And the negative person in me would say, well, if you can't beat Illinois or Iowa, how the heck are you going to beat Penn State? And if you can't beat Oregon, how are you going to beat Penn State? Because I think Penn State's better than all of those teams, rightfully so, and so would most people around the country. And so if you're 3-3, you're in serious trouble. Yeah, you'll be able to rattle off wins against Michigan State and Maryland and Purdue and UCLA, but you're looking at an 8-4 team. The inevitable step back is there, and everybody's going to say, oh, yeah, I told you so. That was a fluke. Indiana's not that good. I don't believe that that's going to happen. It is a gauntlet. That's 3 tough games in a row. Home versus Illinois, at Iowa, and then at Oregon. I don't expect Indiana to go undefeated in that stretch. I think it's a tall ask for you to go 2-1 in that stretch. I think it can be done, and I somewhat expect it. But if you go 1-2, you're okay, because then you still have everything in front of you. You build up some momentum, and it makes our game, Zach, even bigger later in the season when the Hoosiers come and play at Beaver Stadium, because winner of that game, if it's Indiana, you're probably in the college football playoff. I expect Penn State to be undefeated by that point, bare minimum just the 1 loss. And so can they afford it? Can they not? That'll be a whole debate by that time. And so, yeah, man, you survive those 3 games, you're cruising. You're good to go other than the Penn State game, because I think Indiana will be favored in every other game that they play.
I think one of Penn State's just something that's favorable for the schedule is the fact of the way it's set up. Because right out of the gate, when you have a new starting quarterback and you got to face Illinois, that's, like I said, it's one of the best teams recently in memory for the Fighting Illini.
Yeah.
Then you got to go on the road to Kinnick. Then you got to go on the road to Oregon. I imagine a bye's wedged in there, right?
Yes, there's a bye between Iowa and Oregon. Yes.
Okay, exactly. So that would have been awful. Yeah, so besides the point, it's still that 3-game gauntlet early in the schedule. Penn State has a similar 3-game setup, and it does include your Hoosiers. At Iowa, at Ohio State, there is a bye week wedged in there between Iowa and Ohio State. So go figure, right? There's a bye week for both of us. We actually have a pretty similar setup.
Yep.
But that's happening. Penn State's toughest stretch is happening later in the season, where I think they already, for the most part, have the chemistry and the rapport built with one another. Again, some transfers that have to get adjusted, but it's just a few players. It's not, your quarterback is your system. Yeah. If Mendoza doesn't vibe with the rest of the offense and you go into those 3 tough games, if that was later in the season, I would actually feel a lot better about Indiana. And I could say, confidently, you know, the floor is 9-3 and the ceiling's 11-1. But there is a realistic possibility if you go 3-3 and you get demoralized early in the season with the expectations, then you could, I mean, a bad situation would be 7-5, but it's very much possible if everything goes wrong for Indiana. For Penn State, I don't see a scenario like that where, the floor is going to be 10-2. You drop that one, you lose the big games that everybody has stereotyped for Penn State. You lose to Oregon, you lose to Ohio State, but you win everything else. I think that's still that. For Penn State, you're still able to get into the college football playoff with that, but with where Oregon is earlier in the season, I actually like that setup for Penn State. So it's the way the schedule is aligned that your tougher games are actually later in the season, which helps you. And then that one against Oregon, where I don't think they're going to be the best version of themselves, that's earlier in the season, which I guess Indiana has going for them too. You're not facing the best version of Oregon. That's going to be in the second half of the season.
Well, the thing I'll say to you, I know we got to wrap up here, is the only thing that benefits Indiana in terms of your tougher stretch being early. What's one thing that the College Football Playoff Committee, because it is a group of people that sit behind a closed door and have no repercussions, what is one thing and one trap that they have fallen into in recent years? Recency bias, right? They go with teams that are hot. They like to put teams that are on win streaks. They don't typically like those early season wins compared to, oh, you haven't lost in 6 games or 5 games in a row. Well, maybe you do deserve a shot. Not always, but they do fall into that at times. That's the only thing that could save Indiana if you do fall flat on your face early. If you lose all 3 of those, you're done. You're not going to make the playoff. But you lose 2 of them and you get hot down the stretch, including a win on the road against Penn State, then you're right back in the conversation. Whereas for Penn State, you guys will, I think, win up to that stretch, but you can't really afford a trip up there and then losing games in that stretch too, because then you're in serious trouble, I think.
I enjoy these conversations, and I hope all of you do. And I hope all of you do as well. That's going to do it for this Locked On College crossover with the Nittany Lions and the Hoosiers. We are your daily sources for all things Penn State, Indiana sports content. Jacob Goins is talking daily Indiana football, basketball, and so much more. We got Penn State football, wrestling, recruiting, basketball, you name it, all over on our respective channels. So become an everydayer, subscribe to both YouTube channels and wherever you get your podcasts for the latest conversations about both Penn State and Indiana. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments section. Thank you for joining us on this crossover episode. Jacob, thank you so much for the time. And, well, we're going to have a pretty relaxed first month, so maybe we do this again.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.